Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan. How are you all? I'm so sorry that we missed an episode last week because me and my recording partner, Kayla, we thought that we hadn't recorded an episode on gatekeeping. And turns out we did it last month. So we recorded it twice. And then we realized as we were about to upload that, oh, we've already done this. Oops. So we took a week off. So I hope you guys had a great week off. But today I'm joined by a familiar guest who hasn't been on the show in a long time. And that is Laura Tempest Zakroff. I'm so glad you're back. I'm so glad you're here. And if you've been following the Tempering Path, you know that we talk a lot about reading Laura's books and how amazing they are for especially when you're first starting out. So Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So glad to be back. I was like, wow, has it been a while? It has.
It has. It's been like 3, almost 4 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is time?
What is time? I don't know. I realized that this is like my 5th or 6th year that I've been recording the show. So yeah. And we're hitting #1 on a lot of platforms, which is even better. So thank you to the listeners, because you guys are the ones that make that happen. So this has been just a wild dream and I love it so much. But God, I'm so glad you're here. It's been ages since we got to connect and all that. And yeah. Everyone, if you have not listened to any of the episodes with Laura, go back and do that. I review her books in a couple of them as well. So yeah, you can pause and go back, or you can do it later. Like, it's not important. We're not continuing the topic, so it's not anything wild. But you can do all that, and she's wonderful in all of the best ways. She's also a beautiful artist and a beautiful human being. So do that.
Aww.
Yes. So there's my beautiful introduction to her. So you have 2 glorious books. You also have a new book that just came out too, right? The tarot book. Yes. I haven't gotten a copy yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I saw it on my to read, list and recommended books, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a book I need to pick up. I haven't gotten there yet. So if anybody's read it, put a comment in the show and tell us all about it and let us know how you liked it. But yeah, we're going to talk a lot about sovereignty and autonomy within energetic and liminal spaces. You guys hear us talk a lot about that already on the show, but now you get to hear from the one who taught me, and that's Laura. Her books are actually one of the ones we recommend the most because they're so wonderful in every way of teaching about witchcraft in an abstract way, but it teaches you how to understand who you are as a witch and a person before you really start digging deep into that, and also how it works within your body, which I love so much. So my first question for you is, how do you personally maintain energetic clarity while working within the liminal?
All right, I've had a cup of tea. We've got this.
I have a lot of questions that are going to poke your brain, so hopefully they don't poke too hard, but yes.
Not my brain, no! So, energetic clarity in the liminal spaces. I think a lot of that comes down to the body. We do have a tendency, particularly within occultism, witchcraft, magic, to very much get in our heads and think everything is out here. But so much of what we're perceiving is through our body, and our link to this world is also through our body. So it's finding that bridge, and that can be, when you're preparing to do a journey or any sort of working, is have you breathed? Have you connected to your body? Have you set a purpose for where you want to go as well? These are really important things versus just like, I'm going to rely on some external influence to get me there. It's start with you.
Yes, start with you. Always start with you, because your energy comes from you to start. So all of that. So yes, that always take the deep breath and then begin.
It's highly underrated and underappreciated, but it's the core of everything.
Right? Yes, it is. So obviously, you talk about, lungs and breath and all of that great work, obviously through both of your books, but Anatomy of the Witch is one where really comes to mind, especially because you have a whole chapter on the witch's lungs. So when somebody reads Anatomy of the Witch, what do you really hope that they will take away from that, and kind of apply to themselves differently afterwards that they may not have applied originally?
First is to realize that your body is your most powerful magical tool. That yes, we love the stuff, we love the shiny things and the smells and the bells and the whistles and all of that. But our perception of all of those things starts with our body, and the power starts within our body. So being able to recognize that and also appreciate it. And we live in a society that discounts the body, that demonizes the body, and has for several thousand years. So, in order to really connect with yourself as a witch and to connect to the environment around you, you have to be present in your body and you have to be able to respect your body. You know, bodies are not perfect. That's also part of the fun, the fun and the dramas. They're messy and
Yeah.
uh, and don't always work the way we want them to, but there still needs to be a level of understanding, respect, and connectivity to your own body, and then you're able to move beyond that. So that's why I hope that folks see that you don't need a lot of stuff. You need to find you and be present in your body because we are here to have an embodied experience.
Yes. And, the embodiment of witchcraft is a huge thing. And so when we're going through and we're learning about ourselves and we're learning about how our own energy works within us, what our energy feels like, looks like, and all of those things, that's such a huge part of the beginning steps of witchcraft. And, you guys are going to get tired of me talking about this. Eventually, we will move on, I promise. But it's so integral for you guys to learn that because knowing who you are as a witch and knowing what your own energy feels like, it's how you discern between what's yours and what's not. And
Yes.
so knowing your body, knowing your energy signatures of sorts and so on is how you really distinguish between the two. So what does embodied witchcraft kind of look like to you? And also, two-part question, what misconceptions do you see or encounter in witchcraft or in witchcraft spaces?
Well, I think part one and part two are going to go together.
Okay.
The embodied experience is a fairly simplistic one. And that is a thing that people, again, coming into magical studies and occultism, expect that things like the more advanced it's going to be, the more complicated it's going to be.
Hmm.
And I have found that within an embodied practice, it's the opposite. The more simplistic, the more basic, the more say stripped down, the
Hmm.
more naked you can get, and I mean naked in a unfettered approach. Not saying you have to go be sky clad at all. I mean, it is like 20 degrees here in New England. I am not
No, you wouldn't catch me outside skyclad like ever. As I've
yeah,
mentioned many times before, there's bugs. I
there's
don't
bugs.
do bugs. Like I feed bugs to my lizards and that's about it. That's the
Yeah,
only bugs I
there's
deal
a
with.
lot of factors. Yeah, bugs, poison ivy. Like this is why I'm like I love hotel events because
Hmm.
there's usually a lack of bugs, a lack of poison ivy, and a lack of sunburn.
Yes,
And a
yes.
preference of beds and indoor plumbing. But anyway, going back to those are the simple things, right? Is that in order for me to do a good job in my magical practice, in my art practice, dance, writing, is I need to be able to take care of my body,
Hmm.
which is about how do I feed my body? How do I give it rest? So I hydrate it. How do I allow for play because play is important. Uh,
Yes.
all this finding this balance within the body, and it is a simple approach, but simple is hard.
Hmm.
One because we tend to think again more is more, but also to have the confidence to strip down and just say again, like it sounds like, but to reduce down, to uncomplicate our approach. Um, you really have to build your intuition and trust
Hmm.
yourself, and that's difficult.
Yes, and finding that balance, especially in today's world, is also extremely difficult. And if you're an ambitious person like me, finding balance is really hard because you want to do all of the things.
Yeah.
And then you have to go, oh, wait, I'm chronically ill. I'm human. I'm not superhuman. I'm not immortal. I do need naps.
Yes.
So
Naps are good.
naps are good. Naps are important. Rest for your body is great and all that. And yes, I agree with you. Hotel events, places where you don't have to go outside in the sunshine. I call myself a pharmaceutical vampire because some of the meds I'm on make me sunburn really easily.
Oh.
And
Yep.
so I'm like, no, I'm just a vampire. I'd like to stay inside, please. Thank you. Sunlight is not my friend. Um, but I enjoy those kinds of events too. And yes, very big lack of bugs. Like I said, the only bugs I deal with are the ones for my lizards. And even then, I'm just like, ew, just eat it. Just eat the bug, please. And of course, they're like, what is your problem? It's just a bug, mom. And I'm like, anyway, I
Like, I'll get
digress.
there. Snack. Maybe I don't eat my snack now. Maybe I just want to watch it for a bit.
Um, so when we talk a little bit about spiritual autonomy, um, and kind of how that works, how does spiritual autonomy kind of move through your life? How do you, obviously you go to a lot of events and all that. So how does your spiritual autonomy kind of work in day-to-day life, but also when you're doing big events? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, looking at my practice is, you know, when I wake up in the morning, I wake up with me
Mm-hmm.
and also 4 cats and a partner. Uh, and so, like, I think it's so important to realize this goes back to intuition and trusting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you are in tune with your body, then you are listening to what your body needs, and you're also in tune with your environment and what's happening around you in the seasons. And those are also your observations. Like, I like to kid around that witchcraft is 80% observation,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and 20%, cookies and cats and cookies, cats, and kettles, but 80% observation. Um, And that means that, I am paying very much attention to what is happening weather-wise here in New England. We just had a
Mm-hmm.
blizzard. We are going to have a shift. It's going to be 60 degrees in a week. And this is the time when there's shifting and changing and what is happening in our kind of pre-spring. And if you are only going by, like, we celebrate spring only on this day with the coven, and that's the only way, like, this is when it becomes officially spring, then you're missing out
Right?
on, yeah, like, so much. Like, it's never a day, it's always a season, it's always an experience, and it's gonna shift from year to year, time, month to month.
Mm-hmm.
We're obviously in a very weird cycle this year where on the East Coast, we are being bombarded with snow and weather, and meanwhile, the West Coast, Colorado, I know, is having a drought. There's, like, a lot of, like, they're like, "Where is our winter?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, that should factor into your practice, like paying attention to what's happening in nature. And that comes into the autonomy of knowing the self and knowing connection around. But when it comes to, like, celebrating with folks is fun too. I'm not saying you
Mm-hmm.
must be on your own, right? I have students and, kind of at a local level and working with them. But we don't have, like, I'm teaching them how to be independent, but
Yes.
also how to work with each other. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the most important thing. It's like, I feel like a witch should know how to practice on their own and trust their practice and what it means where they are situated. But to be able to connect with others on a community level, because community is really important.
Yes.
Um, and I think some of my most favorite things are going to conferences where we're going to have, and anywhere from 50 to 200 people in
Mhm.
a hotel ballroom, whether it is, meeting at the crossroads with Hecate, or we did last week, it was a pan revel, and, like, these people coming together in this moment to celebrate and to realign, and then you go back, like, there's a
Yeah.
convening to it that invigorates the soul and reminds us, especially in, again, the society, when we feel alone, which is separate than the autonomy, right? To kind of
Mhm.
feel alone or solitary versus independent, and be reminded that we're all in this rhythm together.
I love that so much. And it's wonderful hearing you talk about all the things that you talk about, because this is literally what we also teach our students as well. And so we, teach them, hey, these are the practices you should be practicing and learning, obviously. Go forth and do those in your practice. But also, this is what we do as a community on, weekly, monthly, or whatever basis. So that way we all have that community and communion with each other, but we also still have our own individual practices, which I love. And I want to hear about the pan experience. How was that?
So, um, I've done this pan ritual now 3 times.
Yeah.
The first was at PantheaCon 2019,
Mhm.
in evening ballroom, I don't know, 200-300 people, crazy.
Oh, I bet
They're
that
like,
was nuts, but yeah. I'm sure Pan
it
was
was it
like,
was the
"Yeah,
first,
it's a party."
yeah, like, I'm in Seder pants and, all that and
I love
headdress, and
that.
they're like, how's this gonna go?" And it's very different than the Hecate at the Crossroads. But then I did it again. I figured, the last summer I was like, let's do it at Mystic South, and that was another, like, again, giant ballroom in evening type of thing, and you can really sort of revel. But this for Sacred Space, it got scheduled at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday.
Such a weird time.
It was a very weird time, and I was having, like, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I feel like Pan is not to say better in the daytime, but I've had to do Hecate Crossroads at, like, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which I do not recommend. This
Yeah.
it
Throws off
it's
the
not,
day. Yeah.
yeah, it's just not, like, that happened once. It was an outdoor festival, and an immediate thunderstorm came in, and I was like, "This is on brand."
Sounds like
But
her.
then yeah, like, she, like, it wants to be dark. This is what we're gonna do. But, what was really neat about, the ritual room that was happening at Sacred Space Between the Worlds, it was a penthouse.
Oh, neat.
So it's this tall, like the top floor, obviously
Mhm.
penthouse ballroom or meeting space, right? Where you can just see the land on all sides,
Oh,
like just
cool.
all, the nature in its in its winter springness happening. And it also kind of up in the sky. So it created this very liminal experience as well. So like, because you're not clearly on the land, you are multiple floors up in the sky, and we were also facing the issue of the impending blizzard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We're trying to do the calculations of, okay, it's hitting New England at 10 o'clock. So if we leave by 3 o'clock, so get this
In
ritual
theory.
done. Yeah. Like we're gonna do, like, it's got 1 hour. We got it. you know. And despite, a lot of other folks also leaving, we still had like 50, 60 people in that ballroom, um, doing this very wild, very primal ritual. Like, I thought people would be tired, and they were
Mhm.
not. They brought it, and it was really a deep founding into, reconnecting with the body, because I feel like that's one of the messages that Pan brings us
Yes.
is that, our animal cells, our primal cells are connected to nature cells.
Mhm.
Uh, they're reminded those are important. They're also raw, they're silly, they're smelly, all of that, they're even raunchy. But when you think about the words that Pan shows up in,
Mhm.
uh, pandemonium, panic, uh,
Yes.
pandemic, all of those things is, if we are rooted in our rawness and our primal aspect in our community together, kind of celebrating this, the reveling of this experience, then we also are instilling panic in those who deny our bodies and our beliefs, our ability to exist.
Mhm.
Um, and set that off into the world. So I think it was a good mindset to leave on, and it definitely got me through what was from a 6-hour drive to a 12-hour drive getting home.
Oh, no. Well, the
So
ritual itself sounds awesome, and I've done some work with Pan in the past, and he's one of those ones that I'm pretty sure parties with Loki as well. And I work with Loki all the time, so but like doing the little bit that I've done with Pan, it's always such an interesting primal experience with him, because he opens up all of this you know, like the purest of chaos almost, and it's
Yes.
just such an interesting experience. So for anybody who's listening, if you haven't like researched pan, go forth and do it. You'll get some fun shit out of it, I promise.
Yeah, it's really funny when you compare, like, the 2 big rituals that I do. Like, I've done Hecate at the Crossroads. I've lost count now.
Hmm.
Which it's a very powerful, um I wanna say contained experience because it also has a raw, unbridled nature to it, but in a very different way.
Right.
The chthonic, liminal, working in the dark spaces towards illumination, but that energy is very, I want to say regal, right? There's a way
There's
that
a lot of
her
pomp and circumstance with her versus
yes,
Pan, where Pan's like, let's just go run through the woods naked.
yes, yeah, like there's a proper in protocol,
Yeah.
right? And but we could still scream.
Hmm.
Proper protocol and screaming. And the other hand is like raunchy and raw and you know there was something really funny happened though at the end of this last one. It's like my name is on the program. People know it's going to be me. And there was a point like near the end where we're all screaming and the headdress fell off, which was hilarious. And I was like, "You screamed my headdress off." And someone's like, "I didn't realize it was you." I'm like, "Well, that's how this works. So this is how aspecting works because, you know, this
Yeah.
is where you're tapping into. You're tapping into that energy. It's not me pretending to be Pan. It's this current of energy, and
Hmm.
that's what happens. And that's how we are. So
You
I can
channel,
either
you open yourself up to it, and it's so funny because I do a lot of channeling too. So when you channel somebody, it's weird because like if you record the session and you go back and you're like, whoa, why do I look like that? Why do I sound like that? And
right,
you end up with this very different voice or personality coming through, and it's such a wild experience. And luckily in my group we have a lot of channelers, so we all kind of take turns, and that way we're all not completely drained from it. So it takes a lot of energy. But it's wild to think about, and they're like, yeah, your voice completely changed, like you had this whole accent that was different. And I'm like, really? Sometimes I'll even speak in other languages, which is also really weird because I'm like, I don't know anything about that, like what?
right,
And it's such a wild experience. So like I understand the whole like people not recognizing you, because sometimes even like your facial expressions will change, and
yeah,
so it looks different because that energy is flowing through you. How to explain that to somebody who doesn't understand it or experience it? Good luck. I don't know.
you
That's the
got to
way it
be
is.
there.
You gotta be there. It's so true. Um, Kind of bringing away from chaos of Pan, but back to kind of what we were talking about. Um, there's obviously a difference between engaging in liminality as an experience, like we were just talking about, and also working with it as a skill. How do you recognize a difference, and how would you explain that to somebody who is just learning, basically?
To build up liminality as a skill,
To
or
experience from going to like, you experience it like when you're in the liminal and all that, and you experience like the different energies or spirits or any of those things, to understanding how to like work with it in cases like channeling, for example.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
That was like, hold on.
Nope, nope. Sorry,
I,
that might have been worded
it's
weird, and that was my bad. My bad.
okay. It's okay. Make sure we're on point.
Yes.
Yeah, especially we're talking about like the numinous and the luminous. It's all like,
Mhm.
um, so I think a lot of that comes down to I'm gonna say the magical word the intuition, um, because there needs to be a level of trust. A level of trust of observing what's going on and knowing where you end and something else begins and where the intermingling of that is, as well as the surrendering of ego.
Mhm.
That's the big thing, especially when it comes to aspecting and channeling. Like there's an agreement. That's another big thing too. Is like if you are doing very specific work, then you need to lay out what that work's going to be.
Yes.
Uh, I kind of joke around that I can pull anything out of my ass. but it's like I can do anything. Like I've been doing this for 30 years now. I've got the experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
The improvisational experience and the protocol set up in my system that I can fluctuate and move and pivot at any given moment, especially in these big kind of rituals, right? Because they're
Right.
not very planned out. They're a well, people are going to arrive. I'm going to say this, the music's going to start, and after that,
Chaos.
right? And then it will do its thing, and then it'll come back down. Like, there's a few anchors. And so, if you are surrendering your ego, then you are allowing yourself to be in the flow of the moment because you're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to control it. You've established your borders, your, you know, what can happen and what cannot happen should be established
Yes.
beforehand, right?
Yes.
So if I'm going to do something with Pan, it's part of the agreement of we are doing this for this set amount of time. And after we're done, no, I'm not going to go try to hump anybody else in the hallway. Like I am in a, a relationship with one particular person and not going to go, um,
Right.
even though Pan might want to. Like,
Right.
oh, go check out that gerbil. I don't know. It's weird things can happen. But it's the setup of this is when it's going to start. This is when it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be over. This is how you're going to treat my body. This is how I will allow things to flow through. But that's like a framework and a structure. And knowing what those limitations, what your limitations are, and what the spirit or deity's limitations are. And that comes out of experience and it comes out of trust.
Yes.
And I think we can, as human beings, I see a lot of people get really tied up into like there's those are loose ideas. They're
Mm-hmm.
like tight rules. I gotta have this, this, that, and that. And this is they want this from me and they want that from me. I'm like, does that really what's happening, or are you setting that up and you are trying to over control the situation?
Right.
Um, so, I mean, that it's a difficult thing. It's not easy to be like, okay, I know where, my head ends and theirs begins, but I don't see myself as I'm not here as like, I am the voice of the god or the goddess to tell you what to do. I'm like, this is their opportunity to say it. I does not exist.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And my next question for you, kind of, you've sort of already answered it, but if you want to add more to it, that's totally fine. But, as we kind of have been talking about, a lot of practitioners do tend to focus on power, technique, tools, and all of these different things. And as you and I know, because we've been doing this forever, um, over time you kind of develop this, I guess you could call it energetic maturity or discernment or spiritual steadiness. In my group, we obviously call it spiritual or energetic discernment. So if you've been listening to the podcast, we talk a lot about that. Um, so kind of what does that really look like for you when you're going through and say, Hecate wants to talk or whatever? What kind of discernment steps do you do? A, to make sure it is Hecate, because, tricksters exist. We know
Hmm.
these things do happen, not always, but what are some of your steps and what would you kind of like people to really know about spiritual discernment?
So it's about relationships, right? I think that's especially when you're working with spirits and deities and such, is there needs to be an established relationship. So that I know that it's not something else or
Mm-hmm.
part of, my psyche, any of those other things. And so whether it's through a devotional practice, which yeah, I feel like devotion is a whole mixed bag of things with a lot of
Yeah, it
a
can
lot of
be.
right. So I'm going to say in this case, some people might call it devotional, but I would say there's a dedication. Like I work with a
Mm-hmm.
wide variety of deities and spirits on one level in my artwork and another level in my magical practice. And some of that
Mm-hmm.
mixes in between. But you considering, I think the first time I did the Crossroads one was maybe 2014, 15, or 16, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's after almost 20 years of working with that. And the same goes for like, Pan, it took almost 25 years to get you. Actually, though, back up. I have done horn god stuff. Or kind of on the line of Carnanu's energy before I got into Pan.
Mm-hmm.
But again, some of the most goaty things happened, back in the late 90s, and getting and developing time and investigating it, not only on a spiritual plane but an intellectual plane,
Mm-hmm.
doing the research in the mythology, not having that being like, here, I'm only going to do this in a big moment, and then not, work with this deity at any other time.
Yeah.
uh, so it's not showtime. Right?
Right.
It's a, we have already had this agreement, we've already built up this relationship of trust and respect and mutual understanding, that we can get to that point.
Exactly. And having that spiritual discernment is a skill that is developed over time. It's not something you just wake up with one day and be like, oh, look, I know how to do this. And it's like, no, you don't. I promise you don't. You're going to make mistakes and that's okay. And that's part of where that discernment really comes from, is you making those mistakes because you go, oh, shit, that didn't work. I can't do that.
Right?
And
Yes.
it's like, oops. And, or going, hey, you look like Loki, you sound like Loki, but you're saying some weird shit that he doesn't usually say, or you've done some stuff that breaks the boundaries that he and I have with each other. It's like, wait a minute. Like, perfect example of that is Loki, for the longest time, used to send non-poisonous snakes in my house when he really wanted attention. And I'm like, bro, like, enough. You can't keep doing this. Like, we've already had to kill 2 of them because we couldn't get them out of the house. And that wasn't because they were literally just coiled up into something and they got stuck and actually injured
Aw.
themselves. And so it
Aw.
wasn't something I was just like, no, we're maliciously killing them. No, they
Right.
injured themselves trying to like stay in the house. And so at that point it was a mercy. And then other times, like, we're like, okay, we're going to get you out of the house. Well, finally, Loki and I set up this big boundary with each other, and we're like, look, no more snakes. If you want my attention, I will put a toy snake on your altar, fling it across the room, do something else, throw it at me. I don't care. Just get my attention without bringing some living creature into my house. And so eventually, that was a huge boundary. And he's like, okay, I respect it. That's not going to happen anymore. We're not doing that. Great. Years go by. And I'm like, you seem a little off these days. Are you sure it's you? And then he would have all the right answers and do all the stuff, and we'd fact check and all that stuff. And he would still have those answers. But then a snake came into my house, and I'm like, okay. And in the back of my mind, like, you can feel when they come in and all that, and I could feel the energy. And I was like, bro, is this you? Like, for real? And he's like, I thought it would be funny. It was a silly joke. And I'm like, hold up. No, no. We have very big boundaries, and Loki does not break boundaries. When you set
Yeah.
a boundary with him, he does not break it. And I was like, no. Now, the funniest part about that is the snake peed all over my husband trying to get it out of the house.
Oh, no.
Which my husband was like, ew, gross. But I'm over here going, I'm not going to laugh. I promise. I did go laugh in the other room, but that was one of those moments where I'm like, wait, no, we have a very big boundary against this. Now I can definitively say this has not been you. And this is how I can tell we have a trickster. And tricksters are common. They happen. It does happen more often than people think. It's not super alarming. It can be, but if you have good banishment practices, basically just tell them to get the fuck out. You're not going to hurt their feelings. Well, you might, but doesn't matter. They're not supposed to be there anyway. So
Right.
tell them to leave. And most of the time they do. Once they get caught, most tricksters don't stay because the jig's up. They're done. They've caused the chaos. They've been caught. They know they can't stay. They know they're going to get kicked out.
Yeah,
That's
they have violated the rules of hospitality.
Exactly. And so that's kind of how that discernment comes into play. You really, and you were talking about earlier, observation. You observe the scenarios that are happening around you within your practice and who you're communicating with. And if something feels off and you can't quite place it, you make a note of it. If it happens again, or it gets bigger, then you really start going, okay, something's not right here.
Yes.
Deities have their own personalities, and sometimes they get a little, not, I don't want to say pushy, but sometimes they will push our own envelopes, and sometimes it's good for us, sometimes it's not. And then you're just like, hold up, I didn't like that. And then if they stop, it's them. If they don't, it might be somebody else. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
And really also I think on that note too is like, does it come out of the blue where you're
Yeah.
like some sort of detail, people are like, I had a dream about the Morgan and now they want me to spread a message in the world. It's like if you've not interacted with that deity or spirit before and you suddenly got a dream, like that might be more you. You got to spend some more time with it
Mm-hmm.
before you decide you are now, the spokesperson for that deity.
I mean, and there's nothing wrong. Deities do come into dreams. They do those things. That happens. But it's one of those things of, we call it the weird file in our group. And so you have this weird exoteric experience that happens. But what do you do with it? And it's like, oh, well, you're going to take it at face value. And it's like, it might just be a one-off. It might just
Right.
be something totally weird that just happens. If it happens again, or if you have some sort of synchronicity that confirms it, then you can say, okay, this might actually be legit. But if it's not, it just goes in the weird file. And our weird file, honestly, at this point is probably a library. So we have a lot of weird experiences that we're just like, I don't know what to do with that. Chuck it in the weird file. If it comes back, it comes back.
I love that.
So we've talked about all of this really great stuff. So I have a couple more questions. One, what is the biggest advice you would give to new witches? And two, what's going on for the rest of the year? What do you got planned?
So much
I
information.
know. You can pick a top 3 if you need. Like, that's totally fine.
Oh, I feel like right now maybe a timely message because we're living in this wonderful boom of information.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much more resources out there than there was in the 90s and 80s
Yep.
and 70s, even the early 2000s. But it's the internet. The curse and the blessing of the internet is that everybody's got a voice.
Yes.
And so it really is helpful to, before you sit down and say like, I have to go do this thing because I saw it on the TikTok or the
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or I read it in the one book. Like this is where discernment comes in. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to see something maybe at least 3 times from different sources and ask yourself, does this truly resonate with me? Does this make sense for my practice? Does it make sense for where I'm living, how I'm feeling? All of these different things. Uh, Take the time. Like I know we're so eager, especially right, when you're starting something new and you're like, I have found the thing. I'm going to do it.
Excited puppy energy. That's what we call it, is excited puppy
Yeah,
energy.
it's great. Like, I love it so much. I am like I still distinctly remember, those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a fault thing. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing, and it's like that energy that you can use to read all the things, to
Yes.
absorb as much information as possible. And that's what I would encourage is for folks to look at a variety of different resources, and also to practice, especially now with there's so much AI garbage out there. There's so
Mm-hmm.
many books that are not by real people, or has been a conglomerate mess of like things I've written, other people put through an AI
Mm-hmm.
filter and thrown up on Amazon. Um, so take some time, like if books are expensive.
Yeah.
So look, like who is this author? Who are they in the community? What have they written? That before you invest your time and money, because there is so much out there, to do yourself that favor in choosing the research that's going to give you. It's like, is this an untasty, unhealthy snack, or is it something that's good and sustainable that's
Mm-hmm.
been thought out? And I feel like that's a good use of your time and all of that enthusiasm. So that's what I'd recommend for young witches is like, yes, look at a lot of things, but also make sure like it's like reading the calorie labels, I guess,
Right.
before. So that way you're not wasting time and money and find like, oh, this book I got is not actually by a real person, or oh, this person, supports fascism. So
Yep.
perhaps not.
And the cool thing about obviously this show is, and our community that we've built, I vet a ton of books. and I will recommend what books are what, and I also look into the authors to make sure they're decent human beings, because I'm not going to support or recommend an author that supports fascism, for
Yeah.
example, or that's racist, or that's a horrible human being and doesn't want, people to have good lives. And yeah, I don't do any of that. And so if you're looking for a book and you don't know what to look for, or you're confused about looking at a title, you can message me and ask me, and I will happily tell you one way or the other. If I don't know, I'll find out. I will go do my homework for you and get back to you,
Yeah,
because
that
I'm a nerd and I want to go read all the books too. So, um, but yeah, that's one of the reasons that I love doing the show, is because everybody that comes on the show has been vetted and they're all wonderful human people. And we love them because they have good teachings, they have good messages, they have great books. So, hint, hint, shameless plug, go buy Laura's books, all of them. They're amazing. Sigil Witchery, Weave the Liminal, Anatomy of the Witch, all of them, go buy them. And if you can't afford them, go ask your local library.
Yes.
Support your libraries.
Yes. Like, most of my stuff is in, I know here in Rhode Island, I know a lot of library librarian folks, library. Oh my God, words.
Words are hard.
Words are hard, but yeah, and you can request it from libraries to,
Mm-hmm.
check your system. I love libraries.
I do too. They're awesome.
I've got a stack of books I'm working on. Part two of the question is, I've been working on a new Oracle deck project, which is actually two Oracle decks,
Ooh.
two in one. It's a New England folk Oracle,
Oh,
and
neat.
yep, it's called the Lantern, and it's in two parts because part one is land and part two is sea, which I'm taking that famous
Mm-hmm.
Paul Revere ride is one if by land, two if by sea,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because I'm also a dork. Like,
Nerds
it's
unite. We love it.
history and a dad joke
Yes.
together. So I've been like this constant cycling pile of New England folklore and locations and ghost stories and all of this. And some of the books I have purchased for my collection permanently because they're good, and some of them are not good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, thank you, library, for saving me hundreds of dollars.
Right?
But that project's actually about to go live because it's independently published with
Oh,
La
nice.
Panthera
Okay.
Press. So, who did the Southern Gothic Oracle? So it's a really cool Kickstarter project. So that's about to happen. And then I've got PaganaCon this month
Mm-hmm.
in Minnesota. And then other big things are happening this year in Mystic South. I'll be back at Mystic South. And I'll be at Temple Fest, and I'll be at Changing Times, Changing Worlds in Connecticut in November.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there is plenty of things I'm not thinking of that happen in between. So folks can always check out my website where I'm teaching workshops and
Mm-hmm.
where. But yeah, that's now the books and the decks are kind of out. I'm like, and now I'm going to teach and be out in the world.
I love that so much. And I am excited about your deck. You're gonna have to send me links to it so that way I can pick up a copy, because I'm also a New England nerd. I love all of that stuff. So I will absolutely completely totally use that. So yes,
Yay.
please send me a copy. Or send me the link so I can get a copy. That's what I meant. But yes, so you're on Instagram. Are you on the TikToks?
I am not.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm on the YouTubes.
That's fair. I know you're on YouTube, and I know that you're also on Instagram. So yeah, we'll have all of the links and everything in the show description. Everything is there, all of the good stuff. And yeah, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad we got to reconnect. We're gonna have to do it again, and especially because I may have to come back so we can talk about the deck, because I'm absolutely a nerd and would love to hear the ghost stories and references and everything that you got to throw in there, and talk about how that applies to divination, because that would be awesome. So
Yeah, happy to.
everyone who's listening, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for making this show #1 on a lot of the platforms. We cannot produce the show without you, because you are loyal listeners, and we love you for that. Thank you again to Laura for coming on the show. It was awesome, and I can't wait to do it again. But everyone, please take care of yourselves in this crazy world. Drink your water, be kind to each other and yourselves. And I will see you all next time for another episode. Bye bye, everyone.